It's with great regret and even greater sense of concern and anxiety and more that I have to tell you that there is still no sign of our first guest, Gonzalo Lira.
I can't talk very loudly. The system pigs, the defenders of the narrative, the oligarchs that we have in the West, the people who don't care about your well-being, they disappear people. Just like in Argentina in the 1970s and 80s, they disappear people, never to be heard from again. There's a link to an archive post that is of an article on from the Daily Beast. Yesterday, they tried to do a hit piece on me. The author of it hates my guts, something fierce. I'm not going to mention his name. But the guy hates my guts, something fierce. But they did something that is not defamatory, but it's pretty fucking evil. And I'm going to read you from the Daily Beast hit piece that they did on me. Honest belief may help explain why Lira seems willing to expose himself to danger. So they establish that they know that I'm in danger. Both he, his critics, and expert observers note that he's received death threats and withstood efforts to track down his home address from people outraged by his insistence on spewing propaganda. So he's conceding right there, the Daily Beast is conceding right there in the article, that people have tried to track me down. People have tried to find out where I am. The Daily Beast got in touch with the Zelensky regime to ask about me, to see if they knew about me. And they're sort of like, hey, Zelensky regime, there's this guy in Kharkov called Gonzalo Lira, and he's saying things that, you guys don't like. Do you have any comment? They called up the Ukrainian government. Now, why does this matter? Well, this morning it's coming out that the state security services of the Zelensky regime, that is the SBU, the fascist pigs, they picked up a TikToker. They arrested a TikToker, a fucking TikToker. In this goddamn article, they're waving a red flag in front of the Zelensky regime because God alone knows how many times they called the Zelensky regime to get a hold of somebody in their press department. Well, they're very sophisticated in their press department. I'm sure they had somebody who took their information down and passed it along to the appropriate person at the SBU. So I want you guys to know that if ever you don't hear from me for 12 hours during this conflict, if it's 12 hours or more, assume that I've been picked up by the SBU, and assume that the people most responsible are the Daily Beast. The Daily Beast, who deliberately lied about me, claiming that I'm not in Kharkov, admitted to the fact that people are looking for me and want to get a hold of me in the very hit piece that they wrote, and that they contacted the Ukrainian government to make them aware that I'm in Kharkov, make them aware of my significance, make them aware so they can send some SBU goons to get me. Understand what the Daily Beast has done. And when I said, in the title of this, that the Daily Beast wants to kill me, I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm reporting the actual truth. I mean, how do you look at it any other way? How can somebody be so irresponsible and stupid and arrogant as to think that somebody who is in a war zone, in a regime that actively targets its own people, journalists, mayors, members of its own parliament, I mean, even MMA fighters, for crying out loud, who say the wrong thing, how can they be so blind, so arrogant, so irresponsible as to say, there's this guy over there, we don't like him. No, because he says things that we don't like, that we don't agree with. And so we want you, SBU, to do our dirty work for us. You are responsible if anything happens to me. And I want everyone to know that the Daily Beast, as an organization, the editors and the individuals who work for it, every single one, are responsible for it.
Because if in the West they are applying collective responsibility and blaming all Russians, cursing all Russians for this conflict that's going on, and if they automatically lionize every Ukraine, no matter how low, no matter how criminal, just because they happen to be in this situation, then that means that they believe in collective responsibility. Fine. You want to play that game of collective responsibility? Let's take it a step further. You, Daily Beast, as an organization, you who work for the Daily Beast, you who wrote this hit piece, and every single person who works for that organization, and no matter how humble a capacity or how highfalutin a capacity, you are responsible for me. And if something happens, I want every single person who watches this to know that it was because of the Daily Beast who got the SBU to get me. And if you think I'm being overly dramatic, they just disappeared on TikTok, aired footage of him confessing God knows what, and they disappeared him. That's what's going on here. Know it. Know what's going on here, and know who the accomplices are. The system pigs, those disgusting, despicable, evil, and immoral journalists. They're the ones to blame. That's all I've got to say.
Now, a Chilean-American journalist who's been covering the conflict from inside Ukraine has reportedly gone missing in the city of Kharkov. Fellow reporters now fear for his life, saying Gonzalo Lira has been out of contact since last Friday. Well, we've requested an update on the journalist's status and location from the Chilean Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the US Department of State, since Gonzalo Lira holds a dual citizenship. So far, there's been no response, but we'll keep you posted on that.